Okay, so today's June 11th, Tuesday, 2024. I'm here with Mr. Stephen Brown. He was a Navy SEAL operator, SEAL Team 6, did over 250 successful operations. I'd like to start out, just tell me a little bit about where you were born, where you grew up in that environment.
Sure, yeah. So I was born in Heidelberg, Germany. My dad was serving in the U.S. Army at the time. I was back in during the Vietnam era, but he somehow ended up in Germany.
Yeah,
Lucky for him.
yeah,
Uh, about between 1 and 2 years old, we moved back to Michigan, where he was originally from, down in Southwest Michigan, right along Lake Michigan, and basically spent most of the rest of my childhood, young adult years there. My parents did divorce, and for couple of years, I lived with my mom in Lansing, Michigan. But then I moved back with my dad when I started. Back then, it was called junior high, not middle school,
yeah.
and so, and then just kind of spent the remaining through high school there, and then yeah, it was pretty cool upbringing. We kind of didn't live in a subdivision, kind
Yeah,
of lived just out of town. Uh, had a lot of land I could go play on,
yeah.
and
It's
so
always a good thing.
yeah, it was cool. Really didn't realize how awesome of a place it was until after I
Right,
left, and just such a diverse environment as
right.
far as sand dunes to pine forests
Yeah,
to humongous lakes and rivers, and there's a lot of different exposed to just a lot of different things when I was there.
and when did I guess your dad was in the military, so I guess that's when your kind of fascination or interest in the military started?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, as far back as I can remember, I got a picture from my grandmother of my brother and I, and both of us are in Navy uniforms that my grandfather had when he was in World War II. I was maybe 7. He was probably about 4 or 5.
Yeah,
And it's just, yeah, it was always, I could pretty much tell people that I was going in the military from the time I was a little
yeah,
kid. Um, I didn't really know for sure what I wanted to do, but growing up where I did, my friends and I, it seemed like we all had dirt bikes, and we would do BB gun wars
yeah.
and be out in the woods like gillying up and sniping each other and just shooting bottle rockets at each other.
Right,
No eye pro. I don't know how any of us
right.
can have both eyes still, but yeah. So it was just kind of being in the woods a lot. I had a lot of influence from my grandfathers, both were World War II
Yeah,
veterans. My mom's side, he served in Italy in World War II. Said he was a cook, but I don't believe him.
yeah,
And then and he was very outdoorsy, liked to hunt. Um, and then my dad's dad was an aircraft mechanic on an aircraft carrier in the Pacific Theater, and he too also, had like guns. He
yeah.
grew up, back then everything was pretty rural
Right.
when those guys grew up. So they all, they introduced me to that kind of thing. My mom's side of the family, they had a rather large farm with a lot of ponds. It was a gravel quarry for a while. And I would just, when I would stay with those grandparents, usually most of the summers, I would go out and fish on the ponds and take my little BB gun and shoot turtle heads, like
Yeah,
just as far out as I could possibly get that thing to shoot. Little did I know I was learning elevation and windage,
right.
just by trial and error. And so that whole piece of shooting really came natural once I started getting more formal training.
Yeah,
Yeah,
served you well.
it did. Yeah.
And then let's get a little bit into schooling. Was sports part of your high school, or were you more of an academic type of person, or was it just you
I,
didn't?
I would say my academics stretched only as far to stay eligible for athletics.
Yeah,
Uh, Academics I was really bored in class most of the time. I didn't realize that I actually had an academic side of my brain until I got into college and I applied it. But really in high school and junior high, I was long as I was eligible for sports, I was happy with whatever grades I was getting, and played, a variety of sports: baseball, football, track, cross country, swimming. Ended up focusing on swimming later on in high school. At the time I was running cross country, track and swimming, and I just felt like there was a counter effect, because in swimming it seems like you needed to be a little stronger and heavier, and then running you wanted to be skinnier and lighter. And I enjoyed the swimming aspect a lot more. I got into competitive swimming kind of late, so there was no burnout. I was maybe getting a little burned out on running, and just really took to swimming. And I was planning on going in the military right out of high school, and was offered a scholarship. So kind of was like, well, the military will probably still be there when I get out of college, but the scholarship probably won't. So I may want to jump on that. Yeah.
So you went to a JUCO in Fort Lauderdale, and how was that experience?
I did. So I was at Broward Community College.
Okay.
It was cool. I mean, swimming was good. I mean, our coach was really awesome. We had a good team. We had guys from many nations at it, mostly Central and South America countries. The majority was from the United States, but we did have guys from other countries.
Yeah.
And we had a fast team. I mean, and our coach would push us. Like, one summer I stayed there to swim in his club team, and most of the college athletes were there too, along with, the high school kids that he's kind of recruiting. And, we did a 18-hour swim practice. Yeah. And swam the equivalent of running a marathon. And it was, just mental checks like that, just seeing where the team was at. And it was crazy. Like, really didn't have anybody just up and quit. Most of the time they would eat something. So we'd do a 2-hour practice and have a 30-minute break. So you could like eat and hydrate and stuff like that. And I don't know, some of the younger ones, they decided to order Domino's. So they're just pounding down these pieces, and then all of a sudden they got back in the pool and got sick. So the rest of us were like eating baby food and applesauce and things like that. And we're just like, well, lesson learned.
And how did you find that? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I just really enjoyed it. Like, started to apply myself academically in college. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to study, because I was planning on going to the military, and but just like economics, I enjoyed that quite a bit. I took some pre-law stuff. Just kind of bounced around. So I had another club coach that I swam for a little bit there, and he was a psychology, sociology teacher, and he was also prior military, and so kind of got a lot of just, I don't know, good guidance from him, good mentorship from him. But I mean, I couldn't, when I look back at that small period of time, I mean, really came across some personalities that kind of helped me shape my focus on what I really wanted to do later on.
And how did you, I guess, going down to Florida usually isn't a big, I guess, hard thing to do, but how did you find the adaptation from going to Michigan all the way up here, moving away from your parents down to Florida for JUCO? How was that?
It wasn't too bad. I mean, my grandparents lived in Florida. I used to go down there on spring breaks. They lived on the West Coast, so they were a little bit of a drive away, but they weren't too far. I just, going down there as an athlete and being able to be with other athletes, you just kind of click and bond real quick. So it's kind of like you already there's a family waiting for you there. And if your coach knows how to pull you guys together and just, get you guys to start doing things other than showing up at swim practice, it really helps out quite a bit. And there was a couple locals that were on the team. And so, like, if we had a long break between school ending and practice starting, like, their parents would let us come over to their house. We just hang out, that kind of stuff. And so that's pretty cool. Like, the parents that lived in the area would have, if we weren't going home for Thanksgiving or whatever, they would have all of us over. It was a good experience. It really was. Like, just people were taking care of each other. It's pretty cool.
Good. And how'd you find yourself at ASU?
So this is So I started competitive swimming when I was a sophomore in high school.
Right.
And that spring break, after the season was over, I went with my mom and my stepdad and my step brother, sister, and my brother. We went to Scottsdale, Arizona for spring break. And another family from the swim team was also out there on spring break. And he was a year older than me, been swimming all of his life, super fast kid.
Yeah.
And he gives me a call, and this isn't like, hey, we're texting each other on our cell phones. This is, landline,
Right.
push button phones. And it's like, I don't even know how we had each other's numbers because they weren't even our homes.
Right.
But he got a hold of me and he's like, hey, you want to go to ASU or to Tempe and go like check out ASU?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, sure. So we drive into campus and we climb up. There's a mountain that the football stadium is built between. So it's got it's got a big A on it for ASU. So we climb up that thing, and from the top of it, you could look down into Mona Plummer Aquatic Center, and a beautiful long course pool, big diving well. And I was like, man, it'd be awesome to swim in that pool on that team someday. And he looks at me and he's like, there's no way you'll ever be fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that was why.
Right.
Like when I finished up at BCC, I had a lot of SEC scholarship offers.
Yeah.
I mean, even up to Notre Dame, like I went there on a recruiting trip, and that's only 45 minutes from where I grew up.
Yeah.
But I was damn determined to nobody tells me what I can do and what I can't do. So my coach kept talking to ASU's coach, and he's just like, well, he's not fast enough. So then my coach started explaining a little more about my swimming path, and I swam freestyle through high school, and then they switched me over to breaststroke when I got into college. So he explained that to him, and so the coach out there, Ron Johnson, he was like, hey, look, come out here, get on my master's team, swim for a year, get your residency.
Right.
Now if we can offer you something and if you're fast enough, that will make a big difference.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah. So I packed up and headed to Tempe, Arizona, and started swimming with him. And, it was in the winter time. It's pitch, it's black, it's nighttime. We're having a practice, and I'm with all these old ASU swimmers that are, alums that are in the area. And I was just kicking their asses. I mean, I was just having one of those weird, freaky practices.
Right.
And I get to the wall and I pop my head up, and Ron's standing there, and he's like, you still want to swim on the team next year? And I said, I do, coach. And he's like, all right, you got a spot. And I'm like, all right, awesome. And I'm, off the wall and start doing my next set, So that's kind of how that happened. And then I ended up getting an injury. It was a re-injury of an old injury.
Yeah.
And that kind of just like, I'm not going to be able to do this. Like, I'm just going to physically have to understand where my limitation is.
Right.
And on that team, I mean, it was amazing. Like over half of our team was from other nations, and they were all from their Olympic teams.
Yeah.
So you're swimming with these guys. Their caliber is unbelievable. Like the house I lived in was 3 dudes from Brazil's Olympic team.
Yeah.
We lived like right off campus. And it was just a really good time. Really enjoyed all. I mean, it was awesome. We had a real good time there, and then still I just kept applying myself academically and just tried to make the best of it. But then once I got that injury, I was in my senior year, and I was like, well, I guess it's time to go do what I planned on doing coming out of high school. So my best friend and I, we walked into a recruiter's office and started talking to them about going to Buds.
Yeah. So did you end up graduating before, or did you just say, I'm going?
I just said I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm like, college will be there when I get out of the military. That's because now it's like the opposite. It's like, you only got so many years that you can possibly maybe get through this training.
Yeah.
And I was kind of just chomping at the bit, wanted to go. And so after I got injured, I met this other swim coach. He was in Mesa. He was a Vietnam era SEAL, had a swim team, and started swimming for him. And he wouldn't let me swim anything except combat side stroke. I was like, everybody else is freestyle or whatever. I'm combat side stroke. I'm just like, everybody's kicking my butt like 9-year-olds. I'm just like, come on, man. Let me swim something normal. This is terrible.
Right.
But, just getting that swim stroke down and getting that kick glide down really well. And, it paid dividends in Buds. Like myself and my swim buddy, we were our number 1 swim pair by like pretty good distance amount.
Right.
Yeah, it was cool having him. And then he just kind of set me up. I mean, he was a third phase buds instructor
Yeah.
during the Vietnam era. And so he just kind of like, you need to do this for training and this for training and this for training, you know, and so I was just doing that while I was waiting for our date, you know, to head off for boot camp after we signed our papers.
Yeah. So at this point, you knew you wanted to be a Navy SEAL. You didn't just want to be.
Yeah, I
Navy.
knew that when probably, I think it was about my junior year of high school.
Yeah.
I was introduced to one. All up to that point, I was thinking going to SF in the Army.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of PJs or CCTs at the time, or I probably would have been looking at that.
Yeah.
But as soon as I was introduced to this guy and started hearing some of his stories from when he was in Vietnam, I was just like, man, you're in the water. I love being in the water. You know, you get to do everything. You get to do demo. You get to your hey-ho qual. You have all the quals, whereas if you go to an ODA team, you're specializing in one of those. We're in the SEAL teams. There's so few of us that everybody has to know how to do everything. So yeah.
So how far?
I was just going to say, there's literally less than 1/10 of less than 1/10 of SEALs compared to SF. So there's 30-some thousand SF guys, and there's less than 3,000 active duty SEALs. So it kind of, so you get a lot of extra training and get a lot of extra opportunity.
So you go down to the recruiter, you sign your papers, and then how long after this are you sent to basic?
Yeah, so at first it was like, hey, we think we can get you there in January, but worst case will be May. And so my best friend from Florida, from that swim team, he moved out to Arizona.
Yeah.
And he was more goofing off than anything, which is fine. But I was trying to go to school and swim. So he was kind of a distraction at times, but it was all good. So he wanted to do the same thing. So we actually enlisted on the buddy program. And we went in, this would have been fall of 93.
Yeah.
And they were trying to get us in January 94. And, you know, back then it wasn't like when you say, hey, I want to try out to become a SEAL, you had to get a regular Navy job too, because then if you didn't make it through, which was the majority of people, then they could put you somewhere in the Navy and utilize you for the rest of your enlistment. Where now you can get a contract that it's all naval special warfare. It's completely different. And it's probably a good thing. There are some disgruntled people that I knew that would quit or get injured and rolled out and then have to go to the fleet for a couple of years before they could come back. And not always the best case scenario. So my buddy and I, we didn't care what A school it was. We're like, what are the quickest ones? And so they gave us like the shortest ones, and we're like, well, I don't really know what either one of them are. So they explained them to us, and we're like, okay, well, we'll both take yeoman, which like we've both been to college. This is back when, you know, kind of using computers. I don't want to age myself too bad, but it's like, you got to know how to file things. I'm like, this is going to be too easy. So I already know how to type because we had to take typing in high school. Yeah. And so we go to our A school, and it's 3 weeks long. Well, we go to boot camp, which was a joke. I had to like work out at night just to try to stay in shape. So once you get there, you have to redo your buds physical test at like week 5 or 6. So you have all this time where all you're doing is learning how to march. At least most of the people. My recruiter did me a solid. He was like, hey, when you get there and they start asking for positions of leadership, volunteer to be the yeoman. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. That's the A school you got me going to. I don't know if I want to do this. He's like, no, trust me, you'll never even be with your company. You'll be off doing all kinds of other stuff, running around. He's like, you'll have a better chance of staying in shape. I'm like, okay. So I took it. And he was right. Like the first week I was with him, but after that, I was off doing my own thing. And if you weren't with your company, you had to run everywhere. Right. So I naturally just had to run everywhere I went. And so that helped out. So at night, sitting in, you know, doing like doing PT in the bathroom, like pull-ups on the like bar that goes, connects to toilet doors, and like just doing push-ups and sit-ups and squats and whatever. Whenever I was with our company, I'd usually get us in trouble. So they'd make us just do all kinds of push-ups and stuff. And so my company would always be like pissed whenever I was around, in like a joking way, not like
Yeah.
really mad. And so we show up to take our test, Greg and I, and there's like, I don't know, probably 40 some people showing up to do the bud screening. And so they go through everybody's hard card, which is like before computers is like this paper that says what your A school was, what your ABSAB score was, all your tests that you've taken in boot camp, everything had to be handwritten. That's what I was doing as a yeoman, writing all that crap in. So we get there and like half of them don't have the right A school. So that half goes away already. And then we get in the pool for the 500-meter swim, and we got done and there was 4 of us. And then we did push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups. We're down to 2.
Yeah.
And it was me and one other guy. And then we went and did the 1.5 mile run, and I was the only one that made it through.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm like dogging on Greg. I'm like, dude, I've been telling you, you got to keep working out. So we started working out together, and then he had got a chance to take it again in like another week, and then passed it. And then, you know, we finished boot camp, went to A school. Pretty much all we did there was work out, you know, while going to class, but it was pretty simple, basic, like admin stuff. And then from there, went to Bethesda Naval Hospital, waiting for our buds class up. So they had a dive motivator, what they called them back then. And so we would just get assigned to a department in the hospital. And really it was more for accountability on us, making sure we were showing up every day.
Yeah.
But we would get up in the morning and do a workout, go sit around this place, do whatever it is that they need us to do. And then in the afternoon, we'd go and work out again. And we would just kind of do that, you know, until time to take off and head to Coronado.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I remember the first time going across the Coronado Bridge, like on my way to Buds. Like I can remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
It was just like, well, man, this just got real.
Right.
So yeah. And then Buds is a whole nother beast in itself. But I mean, if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it all over again.
Right.
Like without a doubt.
Yeah.
And there's, I mean, met a lot of great dudes going through Buds.
Yeah.
A couple of them I just saw for the first time again since Buds last fall here, actually at the camp. Yeah. So, and then Buds is just like, just a gut check every day, which is awesome. But yeah.
So how did you find Buds? Was it more difficult than you were expecting? Less difficult?
I was pretty prepared for it with all the mentorship I had, like coming up with all these other team guys that I just happened to come into my life. And if you look at it week 1, day 1, and you're like, damn, I got 6 months of this.
Right.
I understand why people quit.
Yeah.
Because it's just a constant beat down in first base. You're wet and sandy all the time. You're running everywhere. I mean, it's constant physical evolutions, team building evolutions with log PT. You're always running with freaking boats on your head, like this, doing surf passage and stuff like that. And, you know, they'd wait for the biggest surf days to get the boats out there, and you just get your butt handed to you. You know, just a yard sale of bodies and boats and paddles and stuff like in the surf zone. And but you know, it was fun until you had to do rock portage, which is like this rock jetty that's off the Hotel Del Coronado, and you do it in the daytime at first, and it seems like, oh, the waves aren't that bad. You know, you got a bow line man that jumps out and holds onto the boat so everybody else can portage the boat up onto the rocks.
Yeah.
Well, then you do it at night, and it's like night swell seems like it thaws like 4 to 6 feet, and it's just boats are just getting crashed into the rocks. And I mean, that's kind of the first evolution where we got anybody hurt, I think, in our class. And it's just, you know, when you look at all the evolutions that you're doing and all the timed runs and the time swims and everything, it's like you better have your head in the game. You can't be distracted. We had, you know, guys in our class that were married and with families and stuff living nearby, and we'd get done at the end of the day and they would take off and go home and then, have to be up and be back with us in the morning. And it's just like, man, that puts a whole nother level of stress in the whole thing. And, I guess if you got that support from your spouse or whomever you're living off base with, then, that would work out. But I mean, if there's like just anything going on at home and you're bringing that with you, it would be really tough.
Yeah.
And then one thing that I just would do, I would break it down. And I've told this to a lot of guys that have wanted to go to buds that I've met. I'm like, don't look at it as 6 months. Don't look at it as if you get rolled, man, I got 2 more months. Don't look at it as I'm in buds prep or like basic orientation now out in Great Lakes before you go to buds prep in Coronado before you class up. I'm like, you got to take it meal to meal.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look any further than the next meal ahead of you, you're going to be like, man, there's so much. Like, I don't know if I can do this. But if you can just make it to that next meal, I mean, that next meal may be full of sand, but, you're at least making it to that next meal. So, especially in Hell Week, they feed you every 6 hours. So, like when you get that meal, all right, we got another 6 hours knocked out of this. And then another. And then you like Wednesday evening, you're on such autopilot anyways, because you've had like no sleep. You're you're a zombie basically going through the motions of everything that they're having you do. And it's so meal to meal. That's what I always tell everybody. But
was there any point during buds where you're like, maybe this isn't for me and I need to go back to doing admin for the Navy?
No way. Like I would have had to die. Like that would have been the only way they would have got me out of training. In Hell Week, I started throwing up blood. I don't know why, but so an instructor noticed it in the sand and was like, because this is Thursday, I think, of Hell Week, and I was hurting. Our last running evolution we had Friday prior to breakout on Sunday. All of a sudden, I had a lower leg injury, and I was just like, it was killing me. And I was like, man, this is not what I need going into this next week.
Right.
And it was like, we're sitting so you get in the dive phase, it's classroom, and you wait in there until Sunday evening, and then you do breakout. And it was like the pain was gone. I mean, the adrenaline just took over. And, but like when I got to Thursday and I started puking up blood, I didn't know what it was. And I didn't know also that as long as you get through Wednesday, if you're injured or whatever, they usually roll you to the next class post Hell Week. But I didn't know that. And I really didn't, I wouldn't have used that as a crutch anyways. Like, so they saw the blood. They started asking like, whose is this? Blah, blah, blah. All right, we're going to start hammering the class until somebody fesses up. And so I was like, all right, that's mine. And then, so they pull me to the ambu and they start looking me over and they're like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, man. My throat's killing me. I don't know where the blood's coming from. I don't know if it's in my mouth. I don't know what. I don't know if I got hit by something. So they took me to medical and observed me for it. So they have you strip off all your uniform and leave it outside because it's so wet and nasty.
Yeah.
Because you've been in the mud pits. It's just disgusting. And so I'm in there and just laying on a bed and just the doctor checking on me. They gave me an IV. They're like, hey, you're dehydrated and stuff. And I'm like, well, everything I ate, everything I drank, I would throw it up. Like I wasn't able to keep anything down.
Right.
And so they slammed a bag in me. I was dry now, which was terrible.
Yeah.
All the sand starting to like flake off my body. I'm just covered in like sores from just chafing.
Yeah.
And starting to feel them now.
Yeah.
Because they're starting to dry up a little bit. And one of the corpsmen comes back into the room and he's like, you ready to go rejoin your class? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. So I go outside and put on these cold ass, nasty, wet greens. And then they drive me out to where my boat crew is. And we're getting ready to leave the obstacle course to do like a mile kind of, at that point, it's a mile walk. We're not running with the boats on our heads anymore, but we start heading down to the demo pits and I fall asleep walking. Yeah. And I remember waking up and I looked over because I was our number one right guy.
Yeah.
And number one left guy, he was still out cold sleeping, just like hand hanging in the loop. just walking, just on total autopilot, like just
Yeah.
out. And it was like, all right. So then we did the demo pits and did some other like surf passage stuff and came back in and ran back down to the compound when they finally secured us. And we started out with 200 and some people in our class. And I think when we got done with Hell Week, shit, there might have been 40 something.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't that many. And then we ended up graduating with 23.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so my buddy Greg, he graduated as well.
Good.
And, yeah. And
So-
then like second phase. So you think like the worst is over when you get done with Hell Week? No,
Right.
it's just starting.
Yeah.
It's worse every phase.
Mhm.
That's just to make sure you got, you know, you
Right.
got that fire in your gut to
Yeah.
just push through and endure whatever they can throw at you.
Yeah.
And then once you start getting 2080 scuba tanks on, they start making you do like 8-count bodybuilders, and which is basically like a burpee
Yeah.
with 2080s on your back, and you know the manifold's busting the back of your head every time you're hitting the deck. And you try to do it where you're going down real slow, so but the instructor's sitting there going 1, 2, 3, and you're supposed to like keep to their cadence, and it's like there's no way. I'm gonna knock myself out.
So how?
And then third phase, learning demo, small arms, small unit tactics, and all that stuff. It was just everything just felt natural. It just being in the water, being tied up in the water, having to swim that way, like everything was just. I'm not going to say it was easy,
Right.
but it felt natural. I mean, I was definitely pushed.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there was never a thought of quitting ever. Like, saw guys drowned, saw dudes. I saw like studs in our class, absolute like pro triathletes, college football players drop like flies, like first full night of Hell Week, and they were dropping like crazy. Where they actually called the entire class in,
Yeah.
and I was like, hey, look, just because these guys can't make it doesn't mean you can't, because all these dudes are like idolized by a lot of the guys in the class, and they were worried they were gonna have a big mass exodus, which they never did, but. Well, they kind of did, but I don't think it was based off of those guys.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you think made the difference between those guys that are these kind of all-star athletes that everybody looks up to, and then the people that actually make it through?
It's definitely something that is not, I don't think you can develop it.
Yeah.
I think it's just something that you have. Now, maybe it's developed from a very young age,
Mhm.
but as far as once you get to adulthood, I don't think you can all of a sudden teach someone how to persevere. They either got it by that time or they don't.
Yeah.
And when you're being challenged multiple times every day and being pushed to when I got pushed physically on the obstacle course, swimming and running, all that stuff was really easy. But the O course, man, I had to game that thing so bad just because my balance was terrible. Well, I wouldn't say terrible, but I'm no gymnast.
Right.
And, so each phase, you kind of got to reset. So in first phase, you did your first O course. And then every time you did the O course after that, you had to beat your last time.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, then you got sent out to the goon squad and you just were hitting the surf, running the berms, just getting hammered basically for not putting out. Well, I would practice the damn O course all the time. I learned a few tricks here and there from some of our guys that were really good at the O course. And just like that first time you did it in the next phase, it was like, okay, I got to slow way down again. It was like, if I went through it clean on that first try, it's like, man, this is gonna be difficult to continue to do this thing clean every time and go faster every time.
Right.
So it was like going really slow that first one. I mean, there was a minimum time you had to beat, and just making sure ahead of that time, not too fast, not too slow. I always beat the last time. But so that was the one evolution that pushed me. PT, swimming, running, all day long, man. When they were like, yeah, we're gonna go do a 4-mile or a 2-mile swim, I'd be like, hell yeah, let's get our shit on and get out in the water, because they can't really mess with you then.
Yeah.
There's like guys on kayaks yelling at you, but it's not like they can make you do anything else other than what you're doing. You're just swimming to a buoy to turn around to swim back. So.
So how long after Hell Week do you graduate buds?
So back then, Hell Week was week 5, I want to say 5, 6,
Yeah.
8. And then 6 was kind of like a post Hell Week thing, learning how to do cartography. And
Yeah.
then 7 and 8, we were doing hydro recon. Now like Hell Week's week 3. So
Yeah.
we had eight. I want to say dive phase was like 8 weeks, and then third phase was probably about the same, maybe a
Yeah.
week more, a week less. One of those two. I think I'm getting them mixed up. First phase and third phase were the same time
Yeah.
length, and I think dive phase was 1 week shorter.
Yeah.
So we were, so you're still pretty far away.
Yeah.
You know?
Long period of time before you graduate. So
Yeah, and then you get into dive phase and you have to learn dive physics.
Yeah.
We had dudes roll out of class because they couldn't do dive physics.
Yeah.
Go to the next class. Very rarely would somebody be kicked out of training for it.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, so then it became academic, and then learning how to, even in third phase, learning how to calculate like time fuse and that kind of stuff for doing demolitions. And so, yeah. But yeah, you just learned a lot. And the crazy thing is, man, you are just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Like once you get out and then you start training after you get to a team, you're like, man, we learned just enough to make us dangerous in buds. Yeah.
So do you know what your job is going to be at this point? Do you know you're going to be a sniper in the SEAL teams, or are you just trying
No.
to?
Yeah. So you put in like a dream sheet when you get in the third phase, like, and I wanted to go to all East Coast teams.
Mm-hmm.
And, then we got our orders towards the end of third phase when we were out on San Clemente Island.
Yeah.
And me and 4 other guys received orders to Field Delivery Vehicle Team 1 in Hawaii, which is our mini submersible. And I was like, man, that's like the furthest place. I was like, worst case, I'll probably end up on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Way West Coast where I ended up. So there was one dude that was like, I want to go to SDV Team 1. So we went to our proctor and it was like, he wants to go to SDV Team 1, and he's got ordered, I think he had orders to Team 2. And I'm like, I want to go to Team 2. Right. Any way we can talk to the detail and get those switched? They're like, nope, it's done, blah, blah, blah. And then, later in my career, when I'm actually working people to get our billets filled up in Alaska, they could have switched. It would have been a phone call. It would have just been a quick name change on some orders. But whatever. I think it worked out, though, because going out to SDV Team 1, it's a different animal in itself.
Yeah.
Just the SDV teams. The days are longer. There's just more to do. The environment that you're working in is much more difficult than, say, riding in a helicopter to get inserted. You're underwater going to get inserted.
Right.
The work ethic was, there's just so much more prep and everything that we had to do. just waterproofing things and stuff like that. And then post-oping everything. And as soon as I got orders originally I was going to do 5 years and get out.
Yeah.
My buddy Greg, that's what he did. He ended up at a Team 8 and finished his enlistment and got out. And I'm like, there's no way I'm getting out until I go to a SEAL team. Like, an SDV team is a SEAL team, but it's just way different. Mm-hmm. Now, the good things about going there was, so you got the pilot navigator side of the house and you got the reconnaissance side of the house. And I ended up in that side of the house, which took me to military free fall school pretty quick and then put me in sniper school pretty fast. Like most people are in their second enlistments before they would get those types of schools.
Oh, really?
Back in those days. Yeah. So that was awesome. Started going down the sniper path at that point. And then, did 2 deployments with CENTCOM. And on both of those, did real world ops enforcing UN sanctions against Iraq. One was more of a traditional reconnaissance role. And then the second deployment, I was pretty much serving the whole time as a helo-borne sniper, covering down laden vessels as assault teams would board those vessels. And
where were these deployments at?
Say again?
Where were these deployments at?
CENTCOM, so we would deploy to Bahrain. to Naval Special Warfare Unit 3 and work out of there. So we were working in the Persian Gulf when we were doing that stuff. And yeah, I mean, so got some good real world experience. It was actually my first deployment, our first op that we did. That was the first time SCV Team 1 had done a real world operation since like Vietnam.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool, like checking that box for the command, and it was successful. And we were working with some British SAS guys.
Yeah.
On it, and yeah, it was cool. So started like working with foreign forces and like foreign forces I wanted to work with, not like we're going overseas to train somebody.
Right.
I want to go work with people I don't have to train, you know, that I might learn something from.
Yeah.
So yeah, did those 2 deployments. And then, you know, while I was gone on my second one, one of my friends, well, a couple of my friends went and screened for Dev Group, and, you know, they both made it through Green Team, and they kept every now and then I'd hear from them like, you got to come out here. You got to screen. You got to come out here. And I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So I'm like, I just want to go to a team. It doesn't matter what team, but I'm like, trust me, you want to go to this one. I'm like, okay. So,
and so how it
yeah.
It's like, did they contact you, or did you put in an application to go to Dev Group?
So what they do is they would go around and do basically a presentation, an unclassified presentation of the command for people that think that they may want to go there.
Yeah.
And just kind of cover all the different aspects, what was going on at the time. I mean, this is before 9/11. You had Great Team, which is our boats, and that was all SEALs that were doing that, where now it's all SWCS. We had 3 assault teams, now we have 4. You know, it's just like things changed and evolved. And so I saw this video of it, and I was, you know, talking to my buddies, and they're like, you need to screen. So I was like, all right. So I put in a request to screen, which sounds weird, but I talked to my chain of command first. I'm like, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And at the time, our CO was a former Team 6 guy. Yeah. So he knew me, and our command master chief knew me really well. And everybody was like, yeah, definitely. And, you know, I worked my ass off at that command, and, you know, had a good name as an operator. And so I was like, all right, I'll do it. So put in the request to do it. And then, so then there's a huge process. Well, it's not huge. You have to go do a psychological screening and a PT test, which is like it's way more enhanced than the regular SEAL PT test. And then if you get through those 2 things, then you go do an interview with all the squadron, or with all the team master chiefs and like the SEAL Team 6 master chief. Yeah. And so I was with my platoon up in Alaska. We were doing our second workup for our second deployment. Yeah. And I was bummed to have to leave Alaska, because I loved it up there every time I went up there. And so I went down to Coronado to do my screening, and, you know, knocked out the PT test, did my psych interview with the command psychologist, which I was like, and he seemed a little bit quirky, but, you know, I guess a lot of people go in that path in life because of quirkiness in themselves. But got that knocked out, and then, you know, got called up to go do my interview out in Virginia Beach. So flew from Hawaii out to Virginia Beach, and I was expecting to have a whole panel of people, but it was like, these guys are in this place. And so it was the command CMC, command master chief, and then a couple other senior enlisted guys, and then the career counselor, she picked me up from the airport and then took me to my interview and sat in on it, because she is directly involved with getting everybody who gets accepted back to the command to start training. And it was weird. Like, the only questions I can remember really talking about was doing investments. Yeah. Because like me and a few other guys in my tasking it back in Hawaii, we were really into investing into tech stocks, and just, you know, all of us were making pretty good money doing it. And I swear I had, because you have to like, everything's an open book.
Mhm.
Your financials,
Yeah.
your mental health, your physical health. I mean, everything. They're like, how do you have so much money? And I'm just like, well, I do a lot of read. I mean, when I wake up in the morning, the stock market's already been open for 4 hours. You know, it's like if I want to, or by the time I have to go to work. So if I want to sit at home and watch what the market's doing, I've got 4 hours before I got to leave to go to work. So I got time. Where you guys, you know, it's open and closed by the time, you know, before you guys. It opens after you get here and it closes before you leave. So obviously you're not going to have any time to really research anything.
Right.
And so I got done with the interview, and the senior chief career counselor, we're walking out. She's like, how do you think you did? And I'm like, I think I did all right.
Yeah.
Like, because the one thing I was told is like, just if they ask you a question, just answer it. What do you think is right or wrong? Just give them the answer that you think is not what they want to hear. Tell them your answer. And so that's what I just did. I just told them all my, you know, what I felt about whatever. And I wish I could remember more of the questions, but I don't know. It's funny. I just remember the investing part. And then so, you know, I took off, and then I was on deployment and got my orders to go to Green Team. That was probably, that to me was like at that point in time in my career, that was my highlight of my career.
Yeah.
I was so stoked. I was just so excited. And so I finished that deployment and then moved to Virginia Beach, and, you know, checked into the command. We still had checked in January. I think we started Green Team in February or March.
Yeah.
So they were just kind of like, go take some leave. You're gonna be busy as shit for the next 9 months. And took some leave. My oldest child at the time got real sick. I was supposed to be back from leave. I called, and this is how well that command takes care of its people. It's like, I called the senior chief that's running Green Team, and I'm like, hey, my kid got sick. They think he's got like rotavirus or something. And, you know, I kind of don't want to leave him here in Michigan and come back to Virginia Beach. He's like, hey, take care of your family. Come back when you come back.
Right.
I'm like, do I need to send you some dates or anything? He's like, no, we'll take care of it when you get back here.
Good.
So then I think I'm getting set up.
Right.
It's like, so now I'm like, my leave shit's expired. Now I'm considered, you know, AWOL, really.
Right.
But, you know, it's just, no, we got you when you get back. So I got back, and we just figured out, changed the dates around on some paperwork, and it was done. Like, all right, get ready to go train.
Yeah.
I'm ready, you know? So, and that command just does a great job of, I mean, you're gone 300 days a year.
Yeah.
Easily. So it's kind of like being on that bullet train.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, that was like post 9/11. So September 11th happened while I was going through Green Team.
Right.
And we were actually training to do personal security details. And we were walking around the command. We had our principal in the middle of our security diamond, and we're walking. And after like the third person was like, hey, have you seen the news? I'm like, something's up, because all these people weren't like hanging out like to create some little story. They try to talk to us to try to get to our principal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, something must be up. So we were right by our medical building and walked in. I'm like, I look at the guy that's doing the training with us. I'm like, hey, can you give me a minute to run in here real quick, see if there's actually something going on?
Yeah.
So I run in there and I see the TV screen. I'm like, holy shit. So I walk back out. I'm like, hey, you might want to come in here and see this. One of the World Trade Centers is on fire.
Yeah.
I didn't know an airplane hit it or nothing. You know, so we're all sitting there watching it like, holy shit, how are they going to put that out? And all of a sudden, the second aircraft, boom. Yeah. And we're all just like, fuck, we're going to war.
Yeah.
We don't know with who, but it's like someone just attacked us. That was a blatant attack.
Yeah.
But we're in training. So we go, all right, let's get back out, focus, get back to training. We'll figure out what's going on the TV later. And, you know, so we're supposed to, so that coming weekend, we're supposed to then shift our training up to Washington, D.C. and do like motorcade work and stuff like that. I get a call from my boat crew leader on like Friday or Saturday. We're supposed to leave Sunday to go to D.C. He called me on Saturday, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And he's like, Steve, don't show up at the command tomorrow. Checking the blue team on Monday.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I mean, we're getting pretty close to the end of our Green Team. We're like in September. We're going to be done in November. And I'm like, no way in hell am I missing movement. He's like, no, seriously, like your training's over. Like, go to blue team. And I'm like, is it anybody else like doing this too? And there's 4 other dudes. And I'm like, look, I'm talking to my boat crew leader, who is now an admiral. And I'm like, look, I'll kill you if this is like totally fake and I miss movement and get booted. Like, he's like, he's not, don't worry. I'm like, okay. I just think it's kind of weird. So so Monday morning I'd go into the command and open up the team room door, and I feel like it's kind of like that moment when the record player scratches going across and the new face walking in, and it's just kind of like, I don't know a damn person in here. And then I saw one dude I knew from SDV Team 1, and I was like, thank God. So I walked over there and I'm like, hey, what's up, man? You know what's going on? They're like, not really, but and then saw the other guys from my class, and I was like, all right, I guess it was legit. And so we're sitting there, I'm catching up with one of my buddies, and another guy from SDB Team 1 comes in. We just start catching up, and one of them's like, yeah, you're in our boat crew. So I start meeting the guys from that crew, and then the door to the head shed office opens up, and they come out, and they're like, all right, kill the lights. And Proxima comes on, and it's a warning order to go to Afghanistan. So and at the time, one of our green team instructors got pulled out too, and was put in as a boat crew leader. So I went over to him and I'm like, hey man, why do we get pulled out of training early? He's like, the 5 of you guys are the only guys in this room right now that have experience in the Middle East, current experience in the Middle East, and no one else in your class did. Yeah. And I was like, huh. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. Right. Roger that. So we went and trained for this op that we were going to do, and ended up, going over there, and never did that op, but started, working some really long range helicopter infill, exfills, and like the longest that TF-160th had ever done up to that point in time, working off of an aircraft carrier, landed in Pakistan to refuel to go into Afghanistan. Yeah. I mean, it was quite the first day of work, having that go down that way. But,
and how did you feel whenever you figured out, I'm getting deployed to Afghanistan? I know you'd done 2 deployments up to this point, but were you kind of like, okay, this is going to be something real high speed, and you're happy that you get to kind of show your training? Or were you kind of like,
well, new place? After watching the World Trade Centers drop, at that point in time, I was like, it's time to go get some payback on these guys. So, we're pretty fired up, and like, let's get over there as fast as we can and start, hunting these people down that did this.
So how quickly were you in Afghanistan after you are on blue team, find out you're on blue team? They tell you you're going.
I want to say it was within a couple weeks. Yeah. Because we basically did that warning order. We rehearsed for an operation that we were going to do. Yeah. And then packed everything up, and then landed. I want to say we landed in Oman, and then heloed out to the Kitty Hawk. Yeah. And then there was our team out there, and then there was a squadron from Delta Force out there as well. And then we would just rotate one night on, one night off. The helicopters would, because we only had so many helos to support so much. So we finally moved onto land, and then it was a little bit different. But at that time, working with the squadron from Delta, and then eventually in 2005, I did a deployment with that squadron, supporting them as a sniper in Iraq. And it's different world between Delta Force and Team 6. Yeah. It really is. We're both on that tip of the spear, but it's just kind of different. I mean, different how you get to Team 6 than how you get to Delta Force significantly. Like a Navy yeoman could apply for Delta Force, and if their package is accepted and they complete their qualification course, they walk in that door the first day into their squadron, and now they're a tier 1 operator. Right. That's been sitting behind a desk, and the only training he's gotten is what he got through his qualification training to do that. Where to go to DAMIC, I mean, you're going to have at least 2 deployments under your belt. You've been in the teams for at least 4 years. I mean, there's a lot of our new guy and their new guy. There's really no comparison. Once you get up to like that assistant team leader and team leader, you know, you get pretty comparable then. But yeah, and then working with those guys, it was great. I mean, I still talk to some of the dudes I was in the squadron with. The assault team I was supporting had 75% casualties while we were on that deployment. Lost 4 dudes. Lost a helicopter. Lost a up armored vehicle, or a Pander. I mean, it was a tough one.
Yeah,
for sure.
Sorry.
And I mean, that wasn't the first one that I'd lost somebody on, but it was just every time I was on an op where we lost somebody, it was preventable and people spoke up about it.
Yeah.
But it was like, hey, this is being driven down from up above, so
Right.
we gotta go do it. It's just like, all right, well, just to let you know, this is a bad idea.
Yeah, but you still have to go do it. And how do you feel whenever you're going to do an operation that you know is dangerous? Are you just kind of thinking this is what I do, or are you thinking, you know, shouldn't be doing?
Yeah, well, it's kind of different. So there was some ops I've gone on where it's just like, hey, we're gonna go in there and we're gonna get it and we're gonna, you know, take this place down and do whatever. When you have intel leading up to it, making a decision like, man, this probably is not the most conducive.
Yeah.
Like we could probably do something different than what we're doing. Like I'm not saying let's not do it, let's do it differently, because if the battlefield just looks a certain way and we're gonna just do it the same old way we do it all the time,
yeah,
you know, we have to adapt our tactics to their tactics. And once we don't do that, then we start losing people. So to back up more, like every time I left to go overseas, you know, I said goodbye.
Yeah.
Like to my family, to my parents, to everybody.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you know, there's no guarantee you're coming back.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna do something other than do my job,
right,
and protect my brother to the left and right, and those assaulters that are kicking in that door. And you know, so it was so the times where it was like unnecessary, where we lost guys,
yeah,
that hurt. I know it wasn't on our level. I know it wasn't on like our team leader level. I know it wasn't even probably on our commander's level. It was probably above them.
yeah.
But you know, that's part of it, I guess. And then the crazy thing is, man, I'd put in so many different con ops when I was running sniper teams and they'd get shot down, and I'd get so frustrated. Like, are we gonna end this war? Like, can we just go out and like find these people, hunt them down?
Yeah.
Just take the gloves off and the handcuffs and let's go finish this. And you know, and then you get the reply like, well, I didn't approve those ops because I want to make sure you made it home. And it's like,
right,
no, that's not the whole point of me wanting to go over there in the first place. It's like,
right,
you know, I plan on coming home. I just say goodbye just in case I don't.
Yeah.
You know, if for some reason I don't, I don't. But yeah, there's like a lot of times I just kind of wondered what we were doing, especially after about 2003, 2004, when it turned into like they wanted to rebuild the nation.
Yeah.
And I was like, so by 2004, I've already done 4 deployments there.
Right.
And I'm just like, obviously, these people with these good ideas have never been here.
Right.
Because if you think like this is Germany or Japan,
right,
after World War II, that have incredible infrastructure, they're educated, they have their own societies and norms and values and customs and blah, 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 blah. This place, they don't have an education. Most places don't have electricity.
right,
The roads are just washes. Like they've been at war since forever.
Yeah.
And when there's no one outside coming to fight them, they fight internally.
Yeah.
It's never ended. They don't know anything other than fighting. Like if you would look in the area that you're operating in, there's some older books when the Russians were there, one written by the Russians, one written by the Mujahideen.
Yeah.
If you just read those and you just circled where they would do ambushes and you just looked at what was going on in that AO
Yeah.
while NATO forces were there or whatever, those ambush sites were the exact same site.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you did a little research,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we know that historically this is an ambush site.
Yeah.
Like, let's be a little more prepared. Let's look a little more aggressive when we're about to hit that point. But it's just like, I don't know. I think people just would deploy, just rely on their leadership. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you got to have some self-preservation. You got to do some of your own studying and research and, talk to the guys that are over there and see what the battlefield's like. Just do anything you can to prep to get over and be successful. Because if you think you're just going to stick your head in the sand, let the war go by you, it's going to run you over. So,
right. Yeah. So was there any conflict between you and your higher ups? Because you obviously have done your research and you know that these spots are maybe more dangerous. Maybe they haven't. And you know this, and is it hard to kind of get your point of view across to them? And do they accept that at all, or is it all just shoot it down, do what I say?
No, I mean, a lot of it was me wanting to go into high risk areas with my team and not getting shot down. The times where, there's 2 times where I voiced my opinion, and in both of those ops, we lost guys.
Yeah.
And, it's just kind of like, they're the ones that got to eat that.
Yeah. And these deployments are all to Afghanistan up to this point, before, except for the first 2. And then so after this, you go to Iraq.
Yeah, so I went to Iraq in 2005 and part of 2006.
Yeah.
And then went back to, I went back there for something else at some point, but it wasn't in a combat role. It was more like embassy role. But you kind of cut out a little bit on the question.
Sorry. So what was the difference? Could you describe a difference between Iraq and Afghanistan, whether that's the people, the geography, the interactions you have with the people that you're fighting, their skill sets as far as foreign fighters, that kind of thing?
Right. Sure. So topography of both countries, Afghanistan, man, if they could just become peaceful, they could have so much extreme sports stuff out there, like ski resorts. They could have 4x4ing areas, hunting.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got some big mountains. They've got some really flat deserts.
Yeah.
Afghanistan was by far logistically harder to do anything in. Doing an op, so, typically to go hit one target in Afghanistan, it would take usually a minimum of like 2 days.
Yeah.
In Iraq, we hit 7 targets in one night. So it's just ease of movement as far as like actually having road infrastructure as opposed to not having your team in, say, Iraq that's kind of all co-located where you could do that op board real quick and be out the door. Where in Afghanistan, you got dudes spread all over the place, and then you pull them back in and then head out and go do that op and then come back and then spread everybody all back out again, looking for that next op. It was a huge difference, operating in both countries.
Yeah.
Didn't really work too much with the Iraqis. I did work quite a bit with Afghanis.
Yeah.
With like their tier 1 guys. And good dudes. I mean, they seemed to listen, and they were, taught by contractors through the agency and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's like, who's going to have your back more?
Right.
Like them or one of my brothers.
Right.
So it's had that in the back of your head.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were doing Hamid Karzai's security detail, our detail was a kind of a mixture of our team and then his people. And there was some tension at the beginning.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. Yeah, because we took his diamond that was in the interior, like his closest to him.
Yeah.
And his bodyguards did not like that at all.
Yeah.
But we're like, well, that's how we're gonna play. We're
Right.
not gonna have you guys Yeah. So I don't know. Our team chief at the time, he he was smart. He could maneuver that kind of
Yeah.
discussion pretty well. And I think they eventually, I mean, I started shooting the shit and hanging out with a couple of
Yeah.
the guys from his detail. And I mean, good guys, smart guys. The interesting thing was listening to what Kabul was like prior to the Taliban taking over,
Yeah.
and how there were nightclubs and there were like girls walking around town in miniskirts, and like you could listen to music and you could watch TV and like, yeah. So, I mean, so I kind of got it from their point, man. They've been like dealing with these guys forever. Then, it turns into a training ground for terrorist cells. And the next thing you know, they're in the middle of all this because the terrorist cells are training in their backyard. And so here comes the big, mighty American fighting machine with all its aircraft and bombs and everything, just obliterating any target they can find.
Yeah.
So, and then I don't know, that the Iraqi people are definitely better educated.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I mean, just way more infrastructure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't consider it even close to being like U.S. infrastructure. I mean, you'd see a power transformer up on a pole, and you'd see like all these random wires just coming off of it. Like some dude just went up there and somehow tied into like their 220 stuff, and it's just like, no way. How would I do that? But I guess if you want power,
you gotta
do what you gotta do. Yeah.
This is all post Saddam, correct?
Saddam?
Yeah, this is all post.
Yeah, this is all after Saddam had been captured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you weren't deployed to Iraq, but as far as maybe stories from people that were, how did it change? Maybe before Saddam was captured to after, or is that not something you
So
can?
I was in Afghanistan, or I was back in Bob Beach when he was captured.
Yeah.
But I did go to Iraq. I mean, I was in Afghanistan when Iraq was invaded.
Yeah.
And we're just like, we're kind of looking at each other like, what are we doing? Why don't we wrap this one up first?
Right.
Saddam's not going anywhere.
Right.
He's like, let's finish rolling up all these dirt bags here and then go over there, which kind of made things slow down. Like most of the foreign fighters, because how we thought it was difficult fighting in that terrain, I'm assuming that they did too, because they like all pushed over to Iraq.
Yeah.
Because Iraq's just easier to move around in.
Yeah.
Because it was just like all of a sudden there's hardly anything going on there. And, we've got a bunch of operators there and most of us are not doing much. So then finally somebody made the call. Well, I know who made the call, but made the call to take half of our guys and put them into Iraq.
Yeah.
And then that's when our squadrons started deploying there. And it just happened the year prior to that is when I deployed to Iraq with one of the squadrons from Delta. It seems like it kind of got a little chaotic in the country after he was captured, more than it was prior to. I mean, he ruled. So you got like terrorism from above and just terrorism from below. So from below is like the people that are trying to fight the government. The government from above is like keeping everybody oppressed. And obviously that was a terror from above situation, like North Korea, China, all these other countries, Russia. Yeah. So there was obviously a huge celebration on one side.
Yeah.
Because now we're not being oppressed by him anymore, but who knows what general or whoever is going to try to take over next. And then that just turned into like Zarqawi being kind of morphing into the whole Al-Qaeda Iraq piece, and then that morphing into Al-Qaeda into ISIS, and so I mean there was always a lot of foreign fighters going there. I mean, there's a lot of foreign fighters in Afghanistan when it first started.
Yeah.
And even up to the point when Iraq happened.
Yeah.
You'd still, But
was that surprising? Foreign fighters coming in?
Not really, because we've got like all of our like soldier of fortune people that want to go jump on whatever, French Foreign Legion that you can just join to go, you know, and it's all perspective. I
Yeah.
mean, our terrorist is their hero.
Yeah.
You know, it's so. I mean, it just depends on which side of the war you're on.
Yeah.
You know what you're actually going to call it. But I mean, I had a lot of respect for the people that we fought, especially in Afghanistan. I mean, it was not easy, man. I mean, they're like living way remote. They're getting stuff walked into them, like as far as supplies and things like that. And, you know, it seemed like they'd be holed up there for an awful long time. And it's, you know, it's generational fighting too, if they're Afghanis. I mean, that's all they knew. Like one of the generals that we were working with, that's all he knew. He never had seen peace ever in his life.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, I guess if that's your norm, how are we going to come in here and all of a sudden make you a democratic society? Right. Good luck. It's going to be a multi-generational effort. Just getting rid of a lot of the, this is what we think is, you know, an atrocity. To them, it's just normal. Right. So it's like, to get rid of that way of thinking, it's almost like you have to get rid of everybody that thinks that way and then start over.
Yeah.
Because, or you have to just, anybody that's born from today on just gets separated. You wait till the rest of them pass away from old age and then you bring that group of people back in. I don't know. It was an impossible task.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Like I say, with like Germany and Japan, you know, way easier because people are educated.
Yeah.
And obviously, they both did a lot of atrocities.
Yeah.
But, you know.
How do you feel fighting against people that, you know, probably aren't going to change? Did you feel like you were making a difference, taking out maybe some of the higher level people, or did you just?
Yeah, to me, I mean, going over there and fighting Al Qaeda like we were at the beginning, which what we were, you know, what we were planning on doing. Yeah, let's keep doing that. And then, you know, it shifted to once Iraq started, then the target package kind of shifted to the Taliban leadership.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get rid of them.
Yeah.
But don't try to have us rebuild this place.
Right.
You know, let's just tell me where you want us to stop, and when we get there, we'll go home. You know, that kind of thing. Like,
so just keeping you there.
How many of them do you want killed? And if it's all of them, okay, we'll go kill all the bad guys, and then let's go home. Let's stop dilly-dallying around, though.
Yeah. So how did you feel? What was it like after a successful operation? You get back, everybody's safe. Was it a party, or was it kind of just like, all right, back to the next day?
It was pretty much, we're back. You know, we'd come back, we would do an after action, go through all the parts of the operation, all the phases of it, and really we'd go right into planning our next stop.
Yeah.
And so it'd be like, go clean, like the team leaders and stuff would start planning the op. All the other guys would go and start cleaning up their gear, making new breaching charges, getting more ammo, doing whatever, getting everything all loaded back up again. Because you never knew, we could be back, and then all of a sudden it's like, knock on the door, hey, we got to roll.
Yeah.
Because of whatever.
Yeah.
So you always had to have everything just rejocked and reset and time to go again.
Yeah.
So there was, I mean, there's a couple like, you know, bigger ops things where it's like, can't believe we made it out of that thing. You know, those types where there's a little bit of celebration, but never like, we waited to burn it down until we got home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's that like coming home? You know, you get family, everybody that you left, then you're also leaving a part of you almost.
Right. So coming home was weird because I remember one of my grandfathers, after probably like my third deployment, he's like, I don't know how you're doing this. And I'm like, what's that, Grandpa? And he's like, you get on a jet and you're back home in 18 hours, walking through your door. Like you just got out of combat. And like when we would get on a ship somewhere in Europe or over in Asia, and they would slow that thing down to a crawl and take 3 times longer to get from over there back, just so everybody had time to decompress
Yeah.
and play some cards and shoot the shit with their, comrades and that kind of thing. And I was like, I never even thought of it like that,
Yeah.
because we would always land in the middle of the night. We would go to the command, drop off our shit, go get my truck keys out of my cage,
Yeah.
hope it started,
Yeah.
drive to my house,
Yeah.
wake up my kids, and then, if that was on a Friday, go back to work on Monday. If that was a Tuesday, went back to work the next day.
Yeah.
And then just, we already knew what our training schedule was going to be like. I knew how many days I was probably be home for.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like you see all these units that will come home and they'll have, a huge like group of people celebrating their arrival. We were always come back in under the cloak of darkness for the most part. And even if it was daytime, there wasn't like people out there hanging out on the tarmac, waving American flags and stuff like that, which, isn't, I don't know. I didn't need to see that because I knew I'd be going right back. And it was just more like I'd rather be in my team room with my brother celebrating it back in there than having some dog and pony show for some politician or something like that because some unit just came back from overseas.
So do you think that's something that's missing from maybe the modern day military, especially special operations, kind of that decompression time of you get to hang out with the people that you're just in this super chaotic place with. You have maybe 2, 3 weeks where you can just tell stories, play cards, decompress, not have to worry about going the next day.
Yeah, so they started doing that a little bit after I left the command and went to Alaska. They started doing, I don't know, I think we just coined it as operators as a decompression stop. It would stop somewhere in Germany, and it was basically like 4 days or something like that. And they would just go and like just be out of that combat environment, be in something that's kind of more like home, though in a foreign country, before actually getting back home. How that all worked out, I don't know. I've never asked.
Yeah.
But that was one thing that we were suggesting after, multiple deployments. It was like, hey, can we like stop someplace? Because I mean, there was one deployment we got back. I basically threw my sweaty ass body armor and stuff into an ISU 90.
Yeah.
So we went right out to the tarmac, put everything on a C-17 and headed home.
Yeah.
I mean, coming right off an op to like walking in the door, and I don't know. To me, it's kind of like insane they would even do that. But we didn't know. We didn't know any better. We didn't know guys. We didn't know we were going to be at war for 20 years. We didn't know guys would have 16 deployments. We didn't know a lot of things.
Yeah.
I'd never thought, after the first deployment, we'd end up doing as many as what we did with like my group of guys.
Yeah.
And then leaving Alaska and going to Team 4 and getting, half of that command ready to go back over to one of those countries.
Yeah.
And it's just like, damn, when is this thing going to get over? Like, somebody's got to like release the hounds and let us just finish this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So after most of your deployments, I guess you go to Alaska. That's correct.
Yep.
With Detachment Kodiak.
Correct.
And you do training for naval, I guess, special operations.
We do. Yeah. So what we are as part of the pipeline now, when you get done with BUDS, you start SQT, SEAL qualification training. Before you'd get done with BUDS, you'd go to basic free fall school, maybe another school or two, and then you would check into the command that you were received orders to when you're in third base.
Yeah.
And then while you're there, then you would get this thing. It was called STT back then, and each command kind of ran their own. So what they eventually did is created SQT, which then made every command across the board, all their new guys will be trained to a certain standard in every one of our skill sets. So when we work together, we could understand what each other's going to do, what they're going to say. The verbiage is the same. The tactics are the same. And so up in Alaska, we would teach mountaineering, survival for NSW SEER, over the beach operations, stuff like that. And then we would also do mobile training teams down to the lower 48 to train task units getting ready to go to, say, Afghanistan. We would meet them like in Northern California, like usually at Bridgeport Marine Corps base.
Yeah.
Get them up in the mountains, teach them how to pack their pack, like get rid of some weight, like what you really need to bring, what you don't need to bring. And, get them ready for going to work in that environment. So going up there, I wanted to go up there as an instructor after going up there twice and just kind of ranked myself out of that. And when I got the opportunity, I got a phone call from the detailer and he was like, hey, some guys from the dead are wondering if you'd like to come up here and be the senior enlisted advisor.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, because I just got into a new squadron and so I ran our sniper cell for a while and then moved into this new squadron.
Yeah.
And then I'd only been there maybe like 9 months. Mm-hmm. And so I went and stick my head in my command master chief's door and I'm like, hey, the detailer just asked me if I'd like to take the SEA spot up in Kodiak.
Yeah.
He looked at me and he's like, I wanted that job and now I can't get it. He's like, because it got rolled from an E9 to an E8 position. Mm-hmm. He's like, if you don't take that job, I will fire you. So you have to take it.
Yeah.
I said, Roger that. So
I
walked back over to my desk and called the detailer back up and I'm like, put my name in that slot.
Yeah.
I'll start getting ready to roll.
Yeah.
So I went up there, in a different position that I wanted to. I just wanted to be with the students and be with the instructors. And so I kind of made my position that we have a warrant officer up there and I just kind of would put a lot of the command work onto him and I would just take off and go with the class when they were in town. We would do a mobile training team down to San Diego for MAROPS, which was weird coming from Alaska to do that down there. But we eventually got rid of that because we started getting tapped into going to train all the task units. And to me, I'm like, we need to train the task units before we train SBT students on how to rig up Zodiacs and run them out in the bay. So being in that spot, I, kind of try to put myself back in my shoes, back in September of 2001, back to that first warning order.
Yeah. And
how little we knew about the environment, about the people, about who were really fighting.
Yeah.
The medical conditions. The only thing we knew is that the Russians mined that place so heavily. The number of mines they put on the ground, taking the total surface of Afghanistan, there was one mine every square yard.
Yeah. Dang.
So that was the one thing I did know. And I was like, well, I wish I would have known that. Like, tell me about some poisonous spider or something. I don't want to know about all the mines.
Right. Something.
So after I was up in Alaska for a little bit and I'd do like my introduction, we'd introduce the staff. Everybody would talk about themselves a little bit. And, I got to thinking, I was like, if I was in those guys' shoes right now, I'd want to know like what it's like in Afghanistan, what it's like in Iraq. And so I put together a PowerPoint slide with some videos and, op videos and stuff like that. And it wasn't a mandatory thing. It was like on a Saturday where we didn't have training. And I was honest to God serious to their OIC and their LPO when I would say, hey, this is not mandatory. You don't have to be at this. Like, this is me just wanting to pass on some knowledge to you and the rest of the people in your class. If they don't want to be there, it's not going to hurt my feelings. But if there are some people that want to learn about this stuff, then show up. And I was like, and back then the students could drink alcohol up there. And I'm like, and this is a non-official thing. If you guys want to sit around and have some beers and stuff, whatever, have at it.
Right.
So I would go in there and I'd give them this lecture videos, PowerPoint, Iraq, Afghanistan, what the operating looked like, what the environment looked like, what the people looked like, some cool guy op videos. And then, I would at the end, I threw in a memorial video of 3 of my teammates that were killed. And I'm like, this is the reality of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, all that cool guy shit that we're doing in all those videos,
right?
All those, hours that you guys have probably been playing Call of Duty and you just hit restart. Well, there's no restart, man.
Yeah.
look to your left and look to your right. There's probably going to be someone in your class that one day is going to get hit, at least injured.
Yeah.
If not killed. And, so it went from a really high pitch, like a really high in that room to like, just took the wind out of everybody's sails. And I'm like, but I don't want you guys leaving on, this note. Like, I just want you guys to just be ready, because if that dude next to you gets hit, you have to keep fighting. You can't like start assessing him and treating him there until you have secured whatever it is that you're trying to secure, that they're laying there bleeding out.
Yeah.
And, so it's just like, I want to make sure that they have that in their head when they're doing this, and they're not like, it doesn't catch them off guard the first time.
Yeah.
Because the first time I remember hearing that one of our dudes was hit, it didn't really catch me off guard, but I was like, well, where the fuck are these bad guys at?
Yeah.
Because our sniper team was up on a hillside overwatching a house that we were going to probably hit, maybe. And one of the vehicles with the assault team in it got ambushed, and I could see tracer fire, and they said they're running our direction. And I was like, oh, this is going to be like shooting turkey or shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
But the guy that called it out had the wrong cardinal direction. But so it was just like, so we hauled ass down, called to X where the ambush was, and just started getting dudes ready to move and get them into other vehicles and get them out of there. And we're waiting for our QRF to show up so we could maybe hunt these guys down that just did this ambush. But to be ready for that, your reaction can't be like, whoa, I'm not going to go. Your reaction is run towards that firefight. Get in there and get amongst it. And if you can't do that, you'll only not do that one time.
Yeah.
Because your teammates will lose complete trust in you, and you will be gone.
Yeah.
So have it in your head to be ready to go. And then after that, so I did a bear hunt while I was up there in 2010, and took the largest bear in the state that year. And so then I do my video of the bear hunt.
Yeah.
And then I get done with that, and I'm like, all right, floor is open for any questions you guys want to talk about. You guys want to talk about what it's going to be like at your first team, what Damnek's like, what it's like being overseas, like anything else you guys got. And, so I was like, I hope somebody gets something out of this. And I can't tell you now the number of guys I've ran into that I put through training while I was in Alaska, and I showed that little presentation that came back as like, everything that we did in Alaska, and even most of SQT, the one thing I remember most was that video and the presentation you gave. And I was like, and just hearing that from one guy, I'm like, if it only would have been one, I'd have been like totally stoked, because that's all I wanted to do. And it's kind of like Camp Brownbear.
Yeah.
If I only helped one veteran that was suffering, it's worth it.
Yeah.
So, and we see change every weekend when we do retreats here. So, and a lot of different veterans.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of good there.
Well, thanks. It's not just me. I got a crew.
So what advice would you give to somebody, well, first, that's about to go on their first deployment, whether they're special operations or not? They know they're going to be in harm's way at some point. What would you say to them to prepare them? Or would it just be, just be ready, some stuff's going to happen, you got to run toward it?
So like for a new guy coming in, like, obviously it's not like they show up and it's like, hey, we're going overseas. They will have had, at least in the teams, you're going to have a year to year and a half work up with your platoon. It's really, when you're that junior guy, it's listening to your team leader, just listen and learn. There's times where you should speak up. Like whenever I would always take any type of good input from someone about something that we're trying to do, whether it was training or real world, from my most junior dude to whomever. I didn't care.
Yeah.
Because you never know. It might be that one kid that grew up somewhere weird and they're different and has a different perspective on whatever it is that we're doing.
Yeah.
So I'd always say, don't be afraid to like have some like input. Make sure it's good input that will, help the planning or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Other than that, man, listen, see, you're going to be partnered up with somebody. You know, you're going to have your swim buddy, and then you're going to have your team leader within your team, and you're going to have your troop lead. And so just, you know, trust them.
Yeah.
It's not their first rodeo. You know, listen and learn.
Yeah.
Trust your gut. That's one thing I would tell everybody. I think most of us that get into this line of work, our intuition is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I think the times where I've trusted my gut 100%, it's been right.
Yeah.
Every time my gut was telling me this is not good, and so I would voice those, hey, this is a bad idea.
Right.
You know, those are the nights when things always went south.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just work harder than everybody else too as a new guy. Like get noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And
but yeah, get noticed. Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay. Just work your butt off. Like,
yeah.
Get to the range more. Like, just become a better operator. You know, stack the deck in your side.
Yeah.
Or wherever you're going or whatever you're doing. But yeah.
Yeah. And then what advice would you give to somebody that maybe has had a longer career? They're looking at getting out. They're kind of wondering what the next step is that they can take to be successful in the civilian world.
Number one would be find sense of purpose.
Yeah.
If you don't have something that you are planning on doing when you get out, you're going to fall apart and turn into a sloppy mess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I even had a plan and I was a mess.
Yeah.
So it's find something that you can keep your mind occupied, your hands busy.
Yeah.
That you can at least see some sort of progress that you're making every day. Like you don't want to make a lot of micro goals.
Right.
So like every day you reach one just to give yourself a little bit of boost. Because if all of a sudden it's like, if I looked at this camp when I got it and I'm like, okay, my goal is to renovate this entire camp.
Right.
Well, that took 8 years.
Yeah.
If I'd have been like, that's my only goal, I probably wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
It was a lot of little goals, little baby steps all the way up to that. But sense of purpose is huge. Like I've talked to so many people that get out and they're just like, I don't know what I want to do. And I'm like, well, do you have a hobby?
Yeah.
Find a hobby. Do that every day. Just find something to do every day. Find something that motivates you to get out of bed. Find something that motivates you to go to bed early.
Yeah.
You know, hitting a bottle every night to pass out, to go to sleep.
Right.
I think everybody does that at some point, but you can't do that forever. You got to find some other way to cage in those demons that are in your brain.
Yeah.
To work them out when you want to work them out, not when they want to work themselves out.
Yeah.
And once you start adding booze and drugs and stuff like that, it's free reign for them. Then that's when bad shit usually happens. When people to have bad things happen to them. But,
Let's talk a little bit about Camp Brownbear.
Sure.
So what made you take this? I guess it started out as an idea. What made you think I'm going to actually do this? I'm going to put this into action and I'm going to.
Right. So my original thought for this was I wanted to find a sense of purpose. I wasn't planning on moving to Kentucky. I was planning on moving back to Alaska, getting my pilot's and guide license.
Yeah.
And doing that until I couldn't put a backpack on anymore or fly a plane anymore. And so I was going to originally open this place up to be a middle school age fatherless boy camp teaching primitive living and land navigation.
Yeah.
So I went shortly after I moved out here, and I went on a Project Wounded Warrior trip through Wounded Warrior, Project Odyssey trip through Wounded Warrior. While I was there, I met some other veterans from the Kentucky area.
Yeah.
We were down in Mississippi for this thing. After a week together, a few of them came up to me and they're like, hey, we'd like to help you renovate the camp that you're trying to do for these kids. I said, okay, that'd be awesome. Because at the time, all I was doing was still trying to take the camp back from the land. It was so overgrown. It hadn't been used in years. This place was built in the 1970s.
Yeah.
I mean, it needed a lot of work. It was the perfect retirement for me because I needed something that I needed to work a lot on because just sitting around wouldn't have been good.
Yeah.
So I had the first group came out here in our lodge. We had no power. It was March. It was cold. We had 2 kerosene heaters.
Yeah.
We had cot their ground pads that everybody slept on, and we had a barbecue grill. That's what we cooked on. And we did that for a weekend. We were just cutting things down and stacking it, setting it on fire. We'd sit around a campfire at night, you know, drinking beer and stuff and just shooting the shit. And
Yeah.
we ate well, you know, even though all we had was that barbecue grill to cook everything on.
Right.
And it's just slowly evolved into, all right, now we're going to gut a cabin. And then once we got to that phase, I was like, I got to find something else for these guys to do because these cabins are nasty. There's all kinds of dead shit up in the attics, like feces. They're disgusting.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we can't do this all weekend anymore. So we started to kayak on Sundays. So Saturday we'd gut a cabin, try to get everything at least squared away enough so that I could start hauling stuff out of here to throw in dumpsters. Yeah. And then Sunday we would go kayak and chill and just kind of enjoy, you know, wilderness and a different scene on the water. And then after that, we introduced yoga and meditation. And then it just started to evolve into what it is today. And I was introduced to a lot of these modalities, not all of them. Some I've come across since starting this, but at the NICO clinic at Walter Reed Medical Center just before I retired. So I was there for a month. I was like, no way am I doing art therapy. No way am I going to do yoga. No way am I, you know, all these lists. No, I'm not doing, I'm like, maybe equine therapy. I'm like, all right. But I was just like, there's no way I'm going to do these things. A labyrinth, I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but I'm not going to do it because I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Well, then I was like, just go do it, dummy. You know, like, so I went and did everything and felt like I got something out of everything that I did. And I was like, okay, so maybe I should just start introducing more of these things to these guys to help them because I know they need it.
Yeah.
And so we started doing that. And first time I said music therapy, they all looked at me like I was smoking crack.
Right.
Or art therapy, any of those things. They're just like, I'm like, I'm doing it. You're going to do it. So that's kind of how that started. And then, you know, it just evolved even more. So it was all males at first, and then we started doing female retreats.
Yeah.
And then Jim Beam came in and helped us renovate our bathroom shower facility so we could have couples retreats. So we have a male and female side. And then the next year they helped us renovate our lodge.
Yeah.
And I mean, our lodge represents our organization so well now. It's beautifully done. It looks awesome in there. And in the past, I would do a presentation up here for somebody, and I was kind of like, man, I should do it down at the library.
Yeah.
Because our lodge was just disgusting. It was functional. Like we could do our classes in it. We could, you know, have our meals in it, but it's like the ceiling sagging. There's like black stuff on it, which I was assuming was black mold, but I wasn't sure. You could see through some walls, you know, the outside coming in. It was just in dire need of being gutted and redone, but it was a bigger project than I could do on my own.
Right.
But Jim Beam rogered up to do it.
Yeah.
I was like, well, the only thing I want from you guys is a promise to finish.
Yeah.
Because right now it's functional. If we gut this thing out and then we stop, now I can't do anything here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was finished and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of how we, and then morph into doing the different types of retreats, adding still more modalities. We've started to add hobbies now, like fly fishing, beer brewing, just things that people can go do. I'm like, just keep your mind occupied. Like, we don't do anything with weapons out here, but I'm like, get into archery. Yeah. Like, the concentration you have to really put that arrow where you want to put it. Yeah. You can't think of it. It's the same with catching a fly. Yeah. Or tying a fly. Yeah. You have to concentrate on it. Right. So just trying to give people tools put in that tool bag to help themselves. And I mean, we see after the end of a weekend, like lives change every
Yeah.
weekend we have a retreat. It's crazy. And like couples coming in here that are completely shut down, not talking to each other.
Yeah.
By Sunday, laughing.
Yeah.
Like the spouse coming up to us, like I haven't seen him or her act like this in like a decade. Thank you so much for having. I mean, and all we needed was one, and we had one a long time ago. He was a multi-suicide attempt guy.
Mhm.
Came through here, ended up getting his master's in art, became an art teacher in a high school back where he's from. And the first retreat he was here, he didn't say a word to anybody. And we had a guy pick him up in Western Kentucky, drive 3.5 hours. He never said a word to him.
Yeah.
Never said a word to him on the way back either. I mean, this dude was gone. Like I'd never seen anybody like it. And he came back for another retreat and just walked up to me still at that really 1,000-mile stare. I mean, it's no 100-yard stare. It's just like, I don't know what he's looking at. Just reaches out his hand, shook his hand, and he said, "Thank you, saved my life." And
Yeah.
I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
And I was just like, appreciate it. Like his story was awesome. He had a lot of burn pit issues,
Yeah.
a lot of respiratory issues, and eventually passed from those things. But
Yeah.
I mean, to see him turn his life around and then have that influence on all those high school kids that he was teaching, so I feel like it's, it's the people that we touch here, but then you got to think of the second and third order of effect.
Right.
So,
Yeah, definitely making a difference.
yeah. But really, I made this place because I know how much of a mess I was.
Yeah.
So I made it how I would want it.
Yeah.
Like, what would I want to do?
Right.
Like things that would make me uncomfortable just trying for the first time. But if I see this spec op guy over there doing it, all right, I'll go give it a shot.
Right. Yeah.
And putting power tools in female hands to like build goat houses and stuff like that. Just watch them like being timid at first, and then by the end of it, like pneumatic nailers, just like bam, 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 bam. And it's just like, all right, slow down.
Yeah.
But it's just cool watching people change, man.
Yeah. And so what needs do you think the camp has that aren't being met currently? And then how do you think anybody could help meet those needs, whether it's volunteer, money, exposure, any of those?
Sure. I think our largest need right now, because by word of mouth, we're getting out to 49 or 50 states for people to apply. A lot of those people just don't have the means to get here.
Yeah.
So, and we try to keep our budget very low by utilizing all volunteers. I want to try to eventually start a stream of funding, like we used to call them codes, but a pot of money that basically is just for travel.
Yeah.
So we get that person from wherever, California, Washington, Oregon.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, here's the deal, find a plane ticket. Here's the 3 airports that are close to us.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get here, we'll write you a check for whatever it costs for you to get here and get home.
Right.
Just to kind of help them out. Because I don't think we'll ever have that type of funding where, we can eat a bunch of plane tickets.
Right.
And so that's kind of the plan that I came up with, is to avoid that. All you gotta do is get here. We'll pay for it, but you gotta get here.
Yeah. So
that way we know that you're gonna get on that plane and not a second be like looking at the gate and be like, nope.
Right.
Some people, we have people take 3-4 times signing up before they'll show up.
Yeah.
I've never taken anybody off our list that just are no shows. I'm like, eventually they'll get out here and then they'll see this place. And every time it happens, they're always like, man, I wish I would have just came that first time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you just had to get comfortable, get out of your bubble, man.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit there and nag at you. You'll do it eventually. Everybody usually does.
And what do you think is the biggest obstacle as far as veterans? Maybe they want to come, but they don't feel like do they not feel like it's going to help them, or do they feel like maybe they're scared of going to this new place?
Right. There's a few things. That's kind of one of it. Fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons I started doing the couples retreats.
Yeah.
So then the veteran could come here, because what the veteran sees during a couples retreat is exactly what they would see during a male or a female retreat.
Right.
So then that way, and we encourage everybody to come back, because they can only see 3 out of about 15, 16 modalities that we do. So that was a big one. So for them to have that partner come with them, that, the partner's holding the veteran like to the fire as far as getting here.
Right.
That's a big one. Another one is, oh man, I just lost it. But so there's the getting out of the bubble thing. That's a big one. Give me the question again. Maybe it'll spark my brain.
What are the biggest obstacles that you see in terms of veterans personally in not just getting there, but maybe making themselves go to the camp? They might be scared or
Sure. So I guess I answered it. The biggest one is really themselves.
Yeah.
It's just getting over that fear, getting out of their comfort zone and coming someplace where they haven't been before, where they don't know anybody.
Yeah.
We try to talk to everybody either through electronic means, or like even this last retreat, I called everybody.
Yeah.
And just was like, hey, I'm from Camp Brownbear. Do you have any questions? We look forward to seeing you.
Right.
And, have a safe trip. Because on this last retreat, we only had one person from Kentucky, and everybody else was like South Carolina,
Yeah.
Iowa, Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
Missouri. So, I mean, it's not like they're just down the street. They're traveling quite a ways, and I want to make sure that they know that, once they get here, they're going to be safe. It's quiet, it's peaceful. You're going to meet some other people that are like-minded. Within about 40 minutes, you'll be acting like your best friends, and
yeah.
It's pretty cool watching the camaraderie piece kick in. And really, that's the two main things about this place is having a good time and building camaraderie. Because even if they don't, even if nothing really resonates with them, as far as the holistic stuff or kayaking or equine therapy, they probably have a phone number in their phone now they can call.
Right. Yeah.
Which is pretty important.
Yeah, it's very important. Where do you see the future of Camp Brownbear? If funding wasn't an issue, logistics wasn't an issue, where would you like to see this camp go?
Sure. So, I mean, the plan of right now, so next summer I'm doing a pilot course up in Alaska.
Yeah.
We're not doing any retreats here in the summertime. It's just the weather's terrible for being outside, and a lot of the health of the people here, like the heat doesn't do good things with it. So we're looking at doing like a more of an outdoor activity type of thing, backpacking, hiking, offshore fishing. So next summer I'm doing a pilot for that up there. I'm going up there in August to set that stuff up.
Yeah.
Next year we're also going to do a pilot of veterans and their teenagers. So we'll have a veteran bring their teenager. They'll all stay in one cabin, and then so I'm finally going to start being able to use my primitive living curriculum.
Yeah.
So we're going to do on Saturdays going to be all primitive living stuff.
Yeah.
And then Sunday will either be kayaking or equine therapy, depending on the time of year, like normal.
Yeah.
I've been hoping to find a partner somewhere between Arizona and Montana with a site somewhat like ours that we can just come in and utilize. And all those West Coast folks that keep signing up that can't get all the way to Kentucky, had a much shorter trip and can hopefully make it to that and start doing something out there. Now, ideally, I'd probably split the country into quadrants and have one camp in each quadrant, because at this camp, we're pretty much tapped out as far as capacity, as far as time and the number of people that we can put through here.
Right.
One of my partner organizations, they've started doing male retreats, and they're going to start doing female retreats, which is going to take some of that off of our plate. So then we can add in those veterans and their teenagers and probably focus more on the couples and those types of retreats.
Right.
Which, are pretty unique. There's not a whole lot of those going on around. And when we do announce that we're having one, the couples retreats fill up like super fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like within a couple hours.
Yeah.
It'll be filled.
Then I'd like to ask, how has this kind of experience running this camp, meeting all these different people, how's that affected you personally?
It's definitely therapy.
Yeah.
Like being able to help, being able to see someone come in here is just broken and
Yeah.
just lost, and to be able to see that spark back in their eyeballs again, uh, it's huge.
Yeah.
Because my sense of purpose is because I was wondering what I was going to do once I finished renovating the camp. So I'm
Yeah.
always trying to find something else to like tear apart and put together and just
Right.
still stay busy.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, seeing whether it's couples or individuals come out here and at the end of the weekend, and really the weekend 48 hours,
Yeah.
come up to me and just say like, you know, our lives are so different after
Yeah.
coming here. We didn't think we needed this, but we really realized now that we did. We weren't going to come because we wanted to have somebody else go, but having that came to this, we wouldn't be how we are right now. I mean, you just get those compliments when we're doing lunch at the end of either equine therapy or kayaking on Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's just like, the 40, 50 hours a week that I put in out here, it's all worth it. I mean, it just saves one life. And the numbers that the VA and everybody puts out, they're so far off. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So the VA, the 16 to 22 a day, that's a VA number.
Yeah.
And the VA number comes from within the VA organization.
Right.
So they don't take a look at any hospitals outside, any civilian side.
Yeah.
There's a study done by the CDC last year. I think it came out in November. I got it somewhere on my computer. 45% of veterans, I think it was age 26 to 60 something, utilize the VA. So less than half.
Yeah.
So if that number is 16 to 22 that are
Right.
going there, and less than half are going there, you
Right.
can only assume that the number is more than that. I
Right.
don't know what that number would be. I've been told by some people that run hospital around the country that are veterans, and they say the number is more like 42 a day.
Yeah.
So when I see these organizations that are, pumping out this 22 push-ups a day, 22 this a day, 22 that a day, it's like, first of all, you don't even know how many are really killing themselves a day.
Yeah.
So let's educate ourselves first before we start talking about a problem that's not
Yeah.
even correct.
Right.
So that's kind of one thing I have a beef on with a lot of these veteran organizations. A lot of them are trying to build awareness. So it's like, there's no need to build awareness anymore. We need to do something. Everybody knows that there's a problem.
Yeah.
And if all you're going to do is raise money to hand to somebody else while you pay your
Right.
administrators within your company,
Yeah.
you're just stealing from those people that you're trying to save.
Yeah.
So it's like, do a little research, do a little study, figure it out.
Yeah.
And last time I got to use those numbers, I was in front of about 200 people, and they were all like veteran service organizations.
Yeah.
And other nonprofits. And I got done talking about Camp Brownbear, and I was like, do you guys have any questions? And it was like crickets. And I'm like, huh. I'm like, interesting. I figured somebody would have one question. Well, I had questions for them. So like I flipped the next slide, and I'm like, all right, I got a question for you. What is the actual veteran suicide rate per day?
Yeah.
16, 22, and the VA was there too.
Yeah.
So I just gave them the same spiel that I just did to you. And
Yeah.
I was like, you all of us need to know what that number really is.
Right.
Not just going off of the one number. It's an important number that the VA gives us. At least we know what's happening within
Yeah.
the veterans in that organization. But, big picture, there's a lot more veterans out there that don't utilize the VA. So,
yeah. So what changes would you like to be seen implemented if you were in charge of, I guess, veteran welfare? What would be your first steps in order to improve those statistics?
So if you look at the amount of money that is budgeted to the VA, it comes out to about $136,000 per veteran.
Yeah.
I would rather see that put on some type of medical card.
Yeah.
Or living expense card, or whatever, cost of living card, whatever you would like to call it. They can use that card to pay for their housing, pay for their medical, pay for their food, pay for things that are like, just the necessities to survive.
Right.
Most importantly, medical, whether that being psychological, internal medicine, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Do away with the whole VA.
Yeah.
Let them find their own doctors that they're comfortable to go to. Let them find somebody that when they call, somebody will answer them. Let them, get on their doctor's website, and they don't have to figure out which of the 4 websites I have to go to find my old medical record.
Yeah.
Let's make it way more simple. I was trying to find a doctor that I had seen a couple of years ago. It took me over an hour to even figure out where I could find my medical
Yeah.
appointment history. And I'm not like the dullest tool in the shed. I'm not really that tech savvy either, but
Yeah.
you know, if I'm having that much trouble doing it, I can't imagine what a Korean War vet's doing,
Yeah.
or a Vietnam vet.
Yeah.
They have a hard enough time with just an iPhone.
Right.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, but that would be my number one change. I would absolutely get rid of the VA altogether, because they don't, all they do is provide support to legislation that's made in Congress.
Yeah.
Which for the veterans. And most of those bills come from the VFW, American Legion, those types of organizations.
Yeah.
So I don't know, keep them out there, keep them advocating.
Yeah.
For veterans, for that health care that they need. And then but man, just let the veteran go to the doctor that they want to go to.
Yeah.
Where when he shows back up at the VA, it's not a different primary care doctor every year.
Right.
You know, get some consistency. Don't make him sit around for 4 hours or days.
Yeah.
Don't make it. I heard somebody call in. I was at dental yesterday. It was like our first available appointment was like towards the end of August.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, there's a problem. Maybe you should let the guy go to the dentist in town.
Right.
Get him in next week.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's just such a broken system. And it's just, so that thing I was speaking at with the VSOs, the VA gave a like update of what's going on here in the Lexington area. And it was like, yeah, we just broke ground on another $13 million 10-bed facility. We just put $700,000 in floors and doors on whatever building it is.
Yeah.
Another like multi-million-dollar project going on wherever.
Yeah.
And I get to my slide, and I'm like, we do all this for $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
I'm like, just imagine what I could do with new floors and doors.
Yeah.
And I just kind of left it at that.
Yeah.
It's just like, you guys are just wasting money.
Right.
Like, good God. So I don't know. But I think we have a really good model here. I think I've had other people try to like, I want people to copy me. I want people to do exactly what I'm doing all over the country.
Yeah.
It's not easy. You got to find the right piece of property. You got, you know, there's a lot of steps involved, but it's doable, you know, and it's not doing it in an urban environment. You have to get out in the country. You have, you know, there's certain boxes you're going to need to check. We're within 15 minutes of a trauma one center, which was important to me with some of the projects that we do, utilizing chainsaws and pole saws and brush cutters and things like that. But it's simple. Like, it's getting them tired. They sleep better. It's peaceful and quiet. They feel safe. They sleep better. Sleeping better helps everything.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, I want to end by thanking you for your service, thanking you for your time, and give you the opportunity, if there's anything you want to say that to reach however many people this reaches. I want to give you the opportunity to do that now.
Sure. So you asked about one thing that we need, and I mentioned travel. So we got a super easy funding mechanism on our website. So if you go to our website and you click on the donate button, it'll give you 3 options. One is a one-time donation, one is a reoccurring donation, and the other one is a roundup.
Yeah.
So a roundup is basically a credit card or a debit card. You set a limit per month from $10 to $100, however you want it. And then it just takes the transaction, it rounds up however many cents to the next dollar. If like you set it at $10, as soon as you get to $10, it stops that month until the next month and it starts over. If we could literally get, you know, a few hundred people to sign up for that, I think we would have our travel money issue solved. But yeah, so that's on our website, and that's www.campbrownbearusa.org. And but yeah, if you can help, if anybody out there can help us out, with
Yeah.
that, that would be awesome. And if you know a vet out there that's, having problems, just talk to them. The main thing is talking to them. If they're talking like they're hinting around suicide, ask them, are you planning to kill yourself? Are you planning to attempt suicide or whatever?
Yeah.
Make them answer that question because it is an option.
Yeah.
Just try to make sure that they know it's the last option.
Right.
There's a lot of other things out there.